Men, welcome to episode 5 of The Next Stage. I'm your host, Rob Stout. I am really excited that you're with us today. You know, The Next Stage is designed to be a resource that is 100% dedicated to you, to your personal development, to be with you on the climb of life, and as we say around here, to help you summit life's climb. It's brought to you by Sherpa 5280, and a Sherpa is somebody who climbs with a mountain climber and is on the path with them, resourcing them, maybe been there before, maybe a little farther ahead in their journey, there to help the climber get to the top. And they are not the hero of the story. In fact, the climber is. They're probably the one who's snapping pictures at the top with them by the flag. And that's what I want to do in this podcast, is to simply be with you on a journey to help resource you so that you've got the ability to take what we do here and plug it into other essential parts of your life, your work life, your professional world. And I got to tell you, as I'm growing in this stuff, this is showing itself all over my professional life. At home, it shows itself in cultivating my inner world and working on those things, and then how I'm present with people around me. It shows itself in my neighborhood, as I'm with neighbors, as I'm talking to people, even at the coffee shop. Just how I interact with people. I believe, my personal belief is that as you plug into your personal growth and find a resource that's dedicated to you, it's 100% for you, that it will show itself in all aspects of your life. So I welcome you today to the opportunity we have to talk to you and join this episode about what we're going to focus on today. And we've been in a very short, kind of a little series as we've launched this podcast. It's all about the foundational pieces of your life, the really 4 pillars of your life. That you can anchor your life on, that you can share aspects of it with your kids, with your sons, with your daughters. You can say, hey, this is how you anchor your life, and figure out how to put that into language for them. And we've talked about 3 P's so far: your passion, your power, your purpose. And today we're hitting the last one of those, and that is your perspective. Your perspective. It's really how you view the world. It's how you have an opportunity to almost distance yourself and view the world, your worldview, if you want to talk about it that way. It's your perspective on life. And I want to talk to you today about this aspect of your perspective and how to grow that, how to be a person of perspective. So thinking about perspective, I want you to think about lenses that you view life through. For example, going to the eye doctor. Dr. Kennedy, the eye guy, is my guy. I don't know who your guy is, or even if you have a guy, but that's my guy, Dr. Kennedy. He's the eye guy. And I started going to him several years ago because, you know, normal folks, we have vision issues, different points in our life. And mine wasn't incredibly bad. It was just, hey, things are blurry. I can't really read great. I've got a little distance issue at my computer, and then, you know, scoreboards at the games and stuff. I can't really see what's going on. So he put that thing, that, I don't know, that big machine on my eyes with all the, you know, A, B, all the, you know, just goes back and forth. It's better A, B. And by the time you get done with it, it's like, you know, smelling perfume or coffee or tasting wine or something like that. Eventually it all tastes the same. You wine people will have an issue with that and be like, no, it doesn't. Bourbon people for sure be, oh, no, I know. You can taste for hours, but whatever. You get the point. They all look the same at one point. But he dialed me in and he goes, yeah, Rob, you know, you're going to need these progressive lenses. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's what my father-in-law wears, and they put the little lines in there. But no. He dialed me into some progressives that, you know, make me look a little better than normal, maybe a little smarter for sure. But, you know, they've got the down here. I can see on the lower part of my eye. I can read really good. I can see mid-distance at my computer, and then I can see farther away. So, you know, they're good. They give me perspective. They give me clear vision. They help. The question I want to pose to you in this episode is this: how is your perspective on your life? Do you have accurate perception of your life? Or are you like me when I walk in to see Dr. Kennedy, the eye guy? Are you more like, man, things are blurry? Or maybe you're like me when I have both my contact lenses and my glasses at the same time, things are just really messed up. Or maybe your life right now, you're like, man, it's more like going into one of those fun houses at the county fair. And, I'm walking in front of a mirror and I look super skinny and, I'm 200 pounds. Or I walk over to the other one, I look like I'm, 2 feet tall and really I'm 6 foot. Maybe that's the way your life is right now. And you're asking the question, how do I gain perspective? How do I grow in this area of perspective in my life? Well, welcome. That's what we're going to dive into today in really practical ways. And just like we've talked about as we've approached these other issues of passion, power, and purpose, this issue of perspective, I believe, and this is just my worldview, comes out of my worldview, which I've been working on since I was probably in college, just really developing that. And I didn't even know it, but I was working on it way before that. But it comes out of a view of, these things that we're talking about, they're universal. They're inside of every man, every woman. They're inside of every boy, every girl. I believe they display themselves differently on the gender side of things, but they're fundamental. They're universal. And as we talk about in this episode about talking about perspective, I had a friend one time, and he was strong in this area. This was an aspect of his life that was like this. There were 4 tires on the truck of his life. This was the huge inflated one, and he was really huge in this area. And I called it, what he did with decision making, I called it running the matrix. We'd be talking about an issue, and he'd sit back, and I go, "What are you doing?" He'd go, "Oh, I'm just thinking through this. That's the one we want." And I'm like, as I got to know him, I realized that he had the ability to view almost objectively any situation in life, kind of run the matrix on those decisions, and then arrive at the conclusion. I'd be like, "Well, give me a day." And I'd walk through it, and I'd connect it with data I had and my experiences and my intuition, and we'd arrive at very close to the same conclusion. But some of us are stronger in this area. Some of us really need sharpened because we're so big in the passion side or the power side. We don't live with much perspective, and so that's why we're jumping into it today. And it comes out of, just like the other pieces that we've talked about in previous episodes, it comes out of a piece of our lives that really comes out of the mind. And the imagery that I want to give you to hang on to is like the sage wisdom side. So think in any epic tale of literature or in film, there was always that sage character that guided the hero, right? I mean, Luke Skywalker had Yoda, he had Obi-Wan, Rocky, my favorite, he had Mick, right? He had Mick, and then Mick died, of course. Sorry to ruin Rocky, 3 or 2, whatever it was. But Mick died. Eventually, Apollo Creed became his sage wisdom guy who would guide him. I mean, Frodo had Gandalf the Grey and Lord of the Rings, and think of it, even Sesame Street. I mean, Ernie had his buddy Bert he would go to and be like, "Hey, Bert," right? So any hero at whatever level has that sage person in their life. Sage wisdom, man, is available to you. Some of you are really strong in that area. You're people I would come to and I would be like, "So let me run this by you." Others, we need sage people in our lives to develop that quadrant of our life, that sage wisdom perspective side. Because here's the reality of the world we live in. If we don't watch it, we're just going to be caught up in what goes on in pop culture. We're going to be governed by all of the messaging around us. And I was talking with a coworker this week. I said, you know what? I've really learned to ask the question, what's the agenda? What am I being sold when I hear a message? some data would tell us that we listen to just, this is Americans. If you're in another part of the world, if you're in Uganda, if you're in Europe or wherever you're at, you probably have a different mix. But we Americans, upwards of 10,000 advertising messages a day. My goodness, that's a lot of messages. So we're being sold a lot. The average American, anyway, spends 2 hours and 24 minutes on social media every day. It's like 10% of your day. You take 7-8 hours of sleeping. That's a major chunk of your waking time that you're spending on social media. And every one of those things has a message to it. It's selling you something. It wants you to live a certain way. It wants you to think a certain way. It wants you to buy into a worldview. It wants you to buy a product. And so we need to be very, very careful in our minds. How we live, what we let in there, what we filter, what goes on, because pop culture is feeding us all kinds of things with its worldview. The wise man would say, I'm going to filter that. I'm going to learn to develop perspective and wisdom and guidance on my own so that I can live the best life possible, not being governed by other people's agenda for my life. That's not even to mention gaming. How many hours a day do you or your son or your buddy spend in gaming? My wife's a second grade teacher, amazing teacher. She does a great job. She's got a very diverse cultural and socioeconomical mix of students that she's with every day. I would not change my life for teaching second graders for $1 million. Well, maybe $1 million. If it was like one day, I would switch hats, but that's about it. But one of the parents came in one time, and this guy, we'll call him, well, we won't give him a name because I'll probably be right, and then I'll get in trouble. But the kid was having a hard time hanging on to the lesson, and the dad comes in and says, Mrs. Stout, have you ever thought about gamifying all of the lessons so that little Zachary, or whatever his name is, could learn better? My wife came and told me that, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, this dude wants you to gamify everything you're doing. She goes, yeah. Meanwhile, I've got kids climbing the walls. I've got kids who are speaking their second or third language in my class. This guy wants me to gamify everything for little Zachary so he can get it. My question to her was, how much time is this dude spending gaming at home? My goodness, the amount of media, screen time, all of that we are growing our culture on is just absolutely astounding. And my perspective, again, the next world war may be fought on gaming. I get it. But it's creating very lazy minds as we do not filter out and filter in what goes into our minds, what goes into us and comes out of our lives. Man, do you see what's at stake here? Think back about the last couple episodes that we talked about. And if you haven't listened to them, please go back and listen to them. We talked about the king position in your life in our last episode when we talked about living with purpose. Not having a filter on what's coming in and out of our minds hands over that king position to somebody else, doesn't it? It's almost like we turn off our minds, we turn on autopilot, and we just hand over that, we abdicate that place in our lives. What's at risk also is just living aimlessly, living by the changing waves of pop culture. By the changing just tides of the sea of what we need to buy, what we need to think, who we need to vote for, who we need to love, all of that is just going. And we end up living double-minded, as one first-century writer put it. We live in ignorance. My kids, when they were in high school, I'm like, where'd you get that information from? They told me the name of their friend, who I will not out on this podcast, but they told me the name of our friend, and I'm like, and where did they hear it from? Like, well, from somebody else. Eventually, it came down to like Snapchat, and I'm like, all right, time out. You're just living in pooled ignorance. That's all you're doing. Here's another perspective, right? I'm just as guilty of that too. If all I'm doing is feeding my mind with pop culture news or stuff from LinkedIn or whatever, right? The point is that we have the ability to live with sharp vision, like going to Dr. Kennedy, the eye guy, and going, oh, there it is. There it is. We have the ability to live with sharp vision if we learn to apply those filters. And man, I got to tell you, I love the opportunity to do a podcast just to share with the world, with the globe, whoever will listen, about things I've learned and am still in the process of learning. You know, like the old Charlie Brown cartoon says, when you're through learning, you're through. Yeah, it's a lifetime growth and deepening. And I love that. I love digging in that for myself, recognizing, just like you do, places where I'm wrong and correcting that and moving forward. So I get it. I'm with you in this journey. So how do you develop perspective? How do you do that? Practically, not in some philosophical, like, let's think about this, or, you know, let's develop this, what I call mission to Mars, some crazy multi-step, 4,000 points of, you know, data, all that kind of stuff. Simple ways that you can take for your life today as you're driving, as you're in that cubicle, as you're on the road, as you're running, as you're on that elliptical, wherever you're at, listening to this podcast. How can you do that? I want to give you 3 simple ways to develop perspective for your life. And here they are. First of all, find the right time and the right space. We've talked about this before. We talked about developing passion in your life. Where is the place where you have an opportunity just to distance yourself from what's going on around you? Where's that place for you? For me, it's a brown leather chair in my family room every morning at 5 o'clock. We've talked about this before. Go back and listen to the episode on developing passion. But it's that place. And this week, as I was traveling on business, it was in a hotel room with the pillows stacked against the bed, no media, no noise, no email, no texting, no anything, just sitting in a quiet place saying, okay, right now, I start my day. When is that time? For you, it may be in the morning, just like me. If I get moving with my day, things go off the rails super quick. Maybe it's midday for you. Maybe it's at night for you. I love my friend who is just wired differently from me. He's like, I love watching the world wake up. He loves sitting in a tree stand, ready to smoke a deer as it walks by, or in a duck blind. He's like, I love that, and that's a very soulish place for me. For me, I love the time, because it makes me a better man as I develop my space and my time. Otherwise, my world runs away from me. Maybe for you, it's a walk in the woods. Maybe it's you, it's sitting in an art museum looking at art, or sitting in a beautiful garden. Maybe for you, it's walking by a river. Maybe for you, it's sitting in quiet. Maybe for you, it's playing an instrument. Maybe for you, it's talking with somebody. I was in California about a year ago, and I found this place. It was by the ocean, listening to the waves just crash on the rocks. It allowed me to get perspective and also some distance from the family members who are with us in California, by the way. But it just allowed me to find that space. Where is that space for you? not only space and time to develop perspective, but the right people. Thinking back through my life, there have been older men who have been down the road 5, 10, 15, 20 years from me, who I've leaned into. I don't know where I got this, but it started with probably an older guy who pursued after me. I don't want that to sound creepy or land weird, but this was a guy who just took interest in me and wanted to mentor and develop me. His name was Mike. And Mike would just say, hey, we're going to meet at McDonald's. I'm going to be there. He'd sit there with his cup of coffee. I was in high school. Just started asking questions about my life and about what was going on. I think about, as I was in college, Don and Todd and Tom and Jim. Later on, Jeff and Randy. My first manager in my first sales job, a guy named Al. We came from very different backgrounds. But this guy became a person. He was my person who just taught me some skills in business, taught me how to get out there and go. Later on, men like Chuck and Bob and Mike and Paul. Most recently, a man named Dallas, who I talk about a lot. He's an 80, 81, 82-year-old man. He's just my guy. Going to him, and he's the right person in my life. You know what's cool about that? Recently, a young guy in his 20s named Matt came to me, and he's like, I want to hang out. I'm like, really? You do? He goes, yep, I do. I go, all right, here's what we do. I gave him a time. I gave him a place. I said, be there. He called me. It's like, hey, I can't make it. I go, oh, yeah, you can. He goes, no, really, I can't. I go, no, get your butt in the car. You said you wanted to get together. You wanted something from me. Let's go for it. My relationship with Matt has become really, really cool. He's a younger guy. I mean, I need like a dictionary to decode some of his text messages because I'm like, what is he talking about? I hand it to my daughter. He goes, oh, yeah, he says he agrees with you 100%. I was like, okay, fantastic. So as you get older guys, you may need like a decoder ring to decode some of the verbiage of the day. That's okay. It'll change in 5 minutes anyway. They'll think they're so cool. All of a sudden they turn 30. They have no idea what high schoolers are talking about. It'll happen to Matt as well. As cool as he is, by the way. Who are your people? Younger men. Check this out. So pursue after some older guys in your life. If there is a man where you work, invite him out to lunch. It's just lunch. It's like that dating app, right? It's just lunch. It's just lunch. It's just coffee. It's just a beer after work. It's just a conversation. But for you to sit down and find the right person is really valuable. And guess what it'll also tell them? It'll tell them this guy wants to grow. This guy just doesn't want to screw around in life. He wants to grow. Pursue after other men in your life. You've got to go after them. Don't stick with pooled ignorance. Find other men who are farther down the road in your life. Maybe it's a coach. It's somebody at work. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's just an old guy you run into in the coffee shop. Find older men in your life. And older men, if you're listening to this, younger men need you. I know a guy in our neighborhood. He's in his 30s. He's living life. He's coaching all these kids. He's like the Pied Piper, man. He and all these dads are just leading these kids. And later on in those kids' life, they're going to look up to these men and go, man, they had it together. They were my people when I was a kid. I talked to so many men who are retired, and they're just talking about, you know what, I've earned the right just to golf all the time. And okay, if you've earned the right financially not to work, that's great. And older men, can I just share my heart with you? As a guy who's had other guys build into him, there is so much value in you in your later years in life. And I'm not talking about, well, maybe you are 80, maybe you are 90 listening to this. Okay. But I want to talk to men who have worked hard enough in life, who are retired. I've talked to so many retired men who, what they say, I'm like, what are you going to do? Well, I'm just going to play. I'm going to golf as much as possible. Okay, great. If you've earned the right, earned the financial, comfort, the financial ability to be able to not have an employment, congratulations. I'm not jealous. I'm proud. Way to go. But what you have not earned the right to do is to just live for yourself and be self-absorbed and listen to the grumpy old men news feed and just kind of spread that bad negative news with all your buddies that you bowl with or go to the coffee shop with. Younger men need you, and you have so much to lend. You, like me, when you're talking to a man almost, 30 years younger than you might need to do some work to decode their world a little bit, to understand and maybe just go, okay, so tell me about that. Share that perspective with me. And there's things to learn from that. But younger men need you. You've heard me talk about my friend Dallas. Dallas retired. He was a manager at IBM. He and his wife were both managers. They both retired. I imagine they had a very comfortable retirement living. You know what he did? He took it upon himself to say, I want to be a mentor to men who I see coming up in life. And he shared experiences about work and about family and about going through a divorce and about all kinds of stuff. He was the guy who wanted to meet with me when I was struggling so deeply in life. And I am eternally grateful to a man who didn't just say, I'm just here for the rest of my life to have fun. He had plenty of fun, make no doubt about it. But he was the right person. Younger men, go find the right person. Older men, be the right person. So we've talked about it. We've talked about finding the right time and space to develop perspective, find the right person to help you develop perspective, because other people who are further down the road, they help you in that area. And finally, find the right source, the right time and place, the right person. Finally, the right source. Find the right source. Find more than just what is currently going on in the world. Find more than just pop culture, the news, all of that stuff. What are the great books that you've read that have just shocked your worldview? What are the outlets for communication that you feed on that you're like, you know what, I've got to have more of that? What are the ancient truths that you lean into that you're like, wow, there's no wonder that's lasted for 4,000 or 2,000 years? What are the places that you go to, the sources that are bigger than just what's going on in today's world? For me, and I talk about it very openly, the words of the scriptures. And you might say, listen, I'm not a religious guy. Well, guess what? Me neither. Because the reality is, when I heard the word religion, I think of just obligation. I think of dead, worthless ritual. I think of just kind of giving away control of myself and just kind of buying in, turning off my mind and letting somebody else run my mind. For me, man, the things that I'm doing in my life have become a source of passion and power and purpose and perspective. And my desire in this area is to start a dialogue with you, not just to jam something down your throat as some worthless dogma or something you just don't need to process and think about, but instead to help you dial into that source. I'm not a religious guy. Guess what? Me either. Because to me, when people talk about religion, I think of just kind of ritual. I think of just people not really thinking and processing or not having rooted in very deep meaning or some personal worldview development that has led them to something, but instead just kind of going with it, just kind of being obedient and dogmatic and following the rules. But that's not what this pursuit of ancient truth has become in my life. Instead, it's become a source of developing purpose, power, passion, perspective. And I have found what I've found to be true with God as a source of ancient truth that is so deeply meaningful. And I'd love for you to talk about it with you. I'd love to jump on a conversation or maybe coach you through that. Not just finding the right time and place, or the right person, but finding the right source. What are the great books that you're leaning into? What is the sources of truth that you're listening to? What is the ancient, anchored in time and timeless truth that you're anchoring your life on? You might say, well, I'm not a religious guy. Me either. When I think about religion, I think about just obligation, living in fear a lot of times. I think about ritual and not really having it anchored in anything personal. That's what I think about when I think about religion. But what I think about when I think about pursuing truth that is anchored in driving passion, power, purpose, and perspective, that's something I've found and I can build my life on. And I hear so many people talk about, well, the universe will guide me. Okay, so the universe is space and time and matter. All I've done with this is attached personhood to that. And pursuing a God who exists, who is out there, who's much more personal than just time and space and matter, but is personal and wants to connect personally with us. That's my worldview. I would love to talk about that with you one-on-one, perhaps share some experience with you, listen to your story around that. But I want to ask you this question. How is your source working for you? That Dr. Phil question, how's that working for you? How is your source of wisdom and perspective working in your life? Man, as we kind of just put a bow on this whole little series we have of passion, power, purpose, perspective, I want to encourage you to pursue a life of deepening perspective by pursuing the right time and space to develop that. Pursue the right people to process that with, and pursue the right source to dive into. Could you imagine a world? Imagine a world where men were anchoring their lives on these four things: passion, power, purpose, perspective. Imagine a world where men were developed and grown on that. Imagine how just pure, I guess, the world would be. They'd have the ability to process and think through things. They would live out of their souls. They would establish goodness around them. They would establish places where others thrive. Men, how awesome would that be? How about if you became a man like that and just followed with us the rest of the way on this journey in the next stage? The gold nugget I would like to leave you with today is this. First one is out of an ancient proverb, and it has to do with perspective. This is how much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver. This writer compares wisdom to financial gain. He says, how much better to be wise than to have gold? Gold's worth a lot. How much better to have good insight than silver? He stacks all that up and he says, you know what? Wisdom is worth pursuing. The second gold nugget, I'd love for you to think about it. We might come back to this one in the future. It's a quote by a Greek philosopher named Heraclitus. It's about 500 BC. It says, no man steps in the same river twice because it's not the same river and he's not the same man. No man steps in the same river twice because it's not the same river. It runs by, and he's not the same man. He's growing, he's developing, he's maturing. May you be men who value wisdom, who pursue that in your life, who grow in perspective, and may you be a man who doesn't step in the same river twice because you're growing, you're pursuing wisdom, you're growing in this area of perspective in your life. Thanks so much for joining us. So glad you've been part of this episode. The challenge I want to leave you with is, who is your person? Where is your time and your space? And what is your source? Men, pursue that. Ask those questions. Go answer those. And then email me, thenextstage@sherpa5280.com. Let me know that insight that you've gained. Would love to hear from you. Thankful that you're part of this episode with us. The Next Stage is a resource dedicated 100% to your personal growth and development as a man. If you've got a comment about the episode, about the Next Stage in general, email me at thenextstage@sherpa5280.com, and we will see you, talk to you, spend some time with you on our next episode. And I want to encourage you, go be awesome in your world today. Thanks. We'll talk to you next time.